Kia ora, I'm Carolyn Young, Chief Executive of Retail NZ, and welcome to today's episode. We will be discussing our journey towards sustainability. Today, I'm joined by Sandy Botterill, who is the Head of Environmental Social Governance at Foodstuffs New Zealand. Sandy started her career as an environmental lawyer and has an extensive background in strategy, transformation, and change. Sandy's also worked as the Circular Economy Lead at Plastics NZ, helping Aotearoa to adopt circular economy principles for plastic, working closely with industry and the Ministry for the Environment on this program of work. She's passionate about ESG and sustainability, people, planet, and prosperity, and is keen to make a big impact as possible for people and leave a positive impact on the environment. Welcome, Sandy.
Kia ora. Thanks so much, Carolyn, for having me.
Oh, look, it's just so great that we've got you here today. We're going to have a little coffee break, take 10 minutes to talk about some sustainability to help everyone get on their sustainability journey. So grab a coffee, everyone, take a break, and we're going to launch right into some big topics, but keep them quite brief. So first thing is, Foodstuffs have been doing a lot of work on sustainability. Can you tell us a little bit about what's been going on?
Yeah, sure. Look, I always think the topic of sustainability it's really complex and it's not really well understood. And sometimes I think it can be quite overwhelming for people and for organizations to grapple with. I think why that is sometimes there's a lack of knowledge or understanding within an organization. And sometimes organizations are just asking themselves, like, how do I start? Like, where do I even jump in? At the other end of the spectrum, some organizations, possibly due to having a few passionate people, will try and do too much too quickly. And that can equally be problematic for businesses. So, I think sustainability isn't something that businesses should think about dipping in and out of. And I think a business has to really think long and hard before it starts its sustainability journey and to be really clear about the things that it wants to achieve. So I'll just share a little bit about what's been happening at Foodstuffs. Yeah. Foodstuffs is equally a reasonably complex organization. We're a cooperative, which basically means across our retail brands, Pack and Save, New World, and Foursquare, all of our stores are owned by their own owner operators. So I work within Foodstuffs New Zealand, and really the reason that myself and my team exist are to really support retailers in understanding how to do ESG or sustainability in the best way possible from a retail perspective. And, I guess the reason that that's really important is it's difficult when you're in a cooperative. You wouldn't want every store kind of just doing their own thing. So what we try to do is really help to set strategy that means that we can be taking collective action across all of our stores in a way which really makes sense to progress towards some of our most important goals that we're trying to reach, rather than everyone doing things in silos.
Would that mean, Sandy, that people are on different parts of the journey at different times? So some of the stores might have started and some haven't started some parts of it. So it's just about they've got a guidance around what to do and they start when those businesses are ready.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be that way. I mean, typically for some, there'll be probably some stores which are more advanced in their journey than others. So I think that that's absolutely the case for Foodstuffs across our different retail brands. Yeah, for sure. So our environmental social governance program at Foodies is called Here for New Zealand. And we really try to make sure that everything that we do is kind of grounded in good research. So this last year, we undertook our second materiality assessment. And before we kind of go, oh gosh, what's a materiality assessment? It's basically just a piece of research that you can do where you're engaging across a whole raft of different stakeholders, both internal and external. So by external, I mean suppliers, customers, government agencies, perhaps NGOs, as well as your internal stakeholders, so your own staff, and maybe you're from a Foodstuffs perspective, basically engaging with our members or our owners. And the point of doing that research is really so that you can understand sort of two key things. And the first is, what are the ESG topics or the sustainability topics that are most important to all of those stakeholders? And secondly, what role does your business have in actually being able to affect change in that area? And, it sounds simple. It's a reasonable piece of research to do. And for an organization like Foodies, which is quite complex, it takes a bit of time. But actually, if you were a small to medium enterprise, this would be something that you could probably do just by literally just setting some coffee chats with your key stakeholders to really get a sense of what are the most important areas that all of those stakeholders think you should focus on. And then really focus in on the things that you can make the most meaningful impact on. So, I think for us, the outcome of doing our second materiality assessment was really important because it gave us a clear sense of direction around what we should prioritize. And I'll just share what those things are. Food affordability is our number one key priority at Foodstuffs. We need to make sure that food is as affordable as it can be for those who are coming in and doing their weekly shop. The second is climate change. I think this last year we've seen unprecedented levels of extreme weather events. We've seen the impact of that. And so climate change, very, very important for us. Waste, with a particular focus on food waste. I mean, why is that? We're a food business. Makes a lot of sense. A very material topic for us. And then finally, packaging. Packaging is one of those areas. It is very complex. It's hard to understand. Some people know a little bit, some people know a lot, but it's, difficult at times to make really, really good sustainable packaging decisions. So packaging is another important one. And it's one that our customers care a lot about too. So, I would really strongly suggest that, it doesn't matter the size of your organization at all, really getting to understand what are the most material topics that matter to us most and our stakeholders most, and where we can actually make a meaningful difference. That's a great place to start.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I think the other thing I picked up from the conversation is that when you're ready to start, make sure you can sustain it, that you're ready to be able to sustain it over a long period of time. And when you think about, as an example, food waste, that goes also to margin and profitability, because if you've got less food waste, you're obviously not throwing away as much food or disposing of food and not selling it. You're actually, selling more of the fresh foods that need to be disposed if they're not consumed. So it's really thinking about where is that wastage sitting in your business and how can you engage with your stakeholders and customers around what are these things that you can do, and start small. I think we're all different sized businesses and we just need to work out what are the things that we can do to start. So I think, they're really great ideas. I was also interested in understanding from you a little bit more about not just sort of maybe the environmentally, but sort of socially around what are the sort of the more sustainable things that you're doing in that sort of space with Foodies as well.
Yeah, though, that's a great question. I think, as a large New Zealand cooperative, all of our stores are all owned by their own owners, and every single one of our stores is really a member of a local community living in that local community. And so really, if I think about, giving back to New Zealand is a super, super important thing for Foodstuffs. And I think it's because of that. We don't have an organization where, one family owns many different stores. Literally every store is owned by just one family. And so last year alone, and I think that that community spirit is really in the hearts and minds of all of our store owners. And last year alone, our stores across North Island and South Island cooperatives gave over $9.3 million into their local communities. And that's through things like giving to local community groups, giving to local schools, charities, sports clubs. I'm really proud of the work that Foodstuffs does in this area. It's really cool. I mean, one area that I will focus on, though, just for a moment, is our stores all supporting food rescue and food banks. If you think back to the things I was saying before about our key priorities, food affordability, climate change, and food waste, so waste, but with a focus on food, supporting local food rescue organizations and food banks is so important because, it's a great example of how that one priority actually speaks to food affordability, right? We don't want to throw anything away when food is expensive.
Yeah.
We don't want to be wasteful in that way. We also don't want the impact of climate change by putting any food waste potentially into landfill, because we don't want the methane emissions that are associated to that. And of course, we just want to be less wasteful, full stop. So this last year, we had a really big focus on ensuring our stores are partnered with food rescue organizations and food banks. And over 90% actually of all of our stores are, which is great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So if we think about it from a SME perspective, those smaller retailers,
Yeah.
what other suggestions do you have around how they could create a more sustainable business? What would be, one or two key takeaways that a SME might take around how they could start?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, I think all businesses, no matter their size or shape, they're really grappling with sustainability and not just environmentally, but socially as well. So I think I'd really strongly suggest that, again, no matter the size, I'd start with engaging with stakeholders to find out what is most materially important. So I would really, I can't stress that enough. That's really the place to start. And then once you understand what's most important, the first thing I would do would be to take a measure of how you're going in that thing, kind of create a bit of a baseline so that you know how you've been tracking. And then what I would do would be to create a measure around that. And again, it kind of goes to what you were saying earlier, Carolyn, about, this isn't, you need to make sure that sustainability is viable long term. It's not something that you just kind of go, oh, I'm going to do this today, but not tomorrow, and so on. So take that measure and then just keep tracking to that measure, hold yourself accountable around it. Whether you choose to publicly report that or not is completely up to each organization. I don't particularly have a view around that, but I think it's really important to hold yourself to account, and probably your stakeholders will be interested in it as well, I would say.
And I think if you can measure things too, sorry to interrupt, Sandy, but if you can measure things, it gives you that impetus to keep going, because if you can see success, you're making a difference. And if we all contribute and make a small difference, it can amount to quite a lot.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And I guess a final comment from me in terms of that, what next steps are, is organizations shouldn't overcomplicate things for themselves. So whatever you're choosing to do, make sure that you've given it a fine arrowhead so that it can really land within your business. And don't choose too many initiatives. I think one of the things I do see go wrong quite often is that organizations want to kind of be everything to everyone or do everything maybe too quickly. And I just really suggest that less is more. Make sure you're focusing on the things that are most important, most material in your business.
Yeah, that's really great advice, to just start
Mm,
small, keep it, keep it achievable, and then it's sustainable. And if you are continuing to achieve, then you'll be more inspired to keep going, and you can add things as you become more competent and more aware of the options that are available to you, and you've been successful in the things that you've started.
yeah, so true.
Because it is, as you said, it is such a complicated space, and it feels, so big for people to work out how to start, that's the challenging thing, I think, that it can prevent people from starting when it is so complicated. So really fantastic advice to give a few simple things to get people started and thinking about what difference they can make in their business and their community, and how to engage with your stakeholders and really understand what will make a difference, and start small and stick at it and measure it. So thank you so much for joining us today, Sandy. It's been such a pleasure to speak to you and hear about how Foodstuffs in New Zealand are supporting the retail sectors, and advice you've got for the wider retail sector. It's really appreciated. Your knowledge and expertise is invaluable. A special thanks to our Retail NZ partners, whose support enables us to keep you up to date with everything retail. We hope you enjoyed this episode and enjoyed your coffee break. Thanks for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to Retail Unplugged on your preferred channel so you can keep up to date with all the current industry knowledge. But until next time, ka kite anō, bye for now, and thanks, Sandy. Kia ora.